Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2017 film The Florida Project, directed by Sean Baker, starring Willem Dafoe, Brooklyn Prince, and Bria Venetia. This film kind of had a similar vibe to something that would maybe have been made by like Harmony Korine. Reminded me a little bit of Kids. Not as vulgar or graphic, but still vulgar. It's about a 6-year-old girl who lives in a motel in Florida, right outside the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, which is basically Disney World. There are more tourists that go to theme parks in Orlando than anywhere else in the world, to my knowledge. So basically, it's about this girl, this 6-year-old girl that lives with her mom in this motel, and the mom is really immature to the point where I'm not even sure how she had a kid so long. But I felt like there was a lot of pretty upfront realism, and I think that a lot of people might find it a little unrealistic. But with my time spent on the streets and stuff, I got to see a lot of things that were similar to things in this film. Um, Parents that probably shouldn't have had their children with them, living out of motels, doing things they shouldn't be doing around children, but they had their kids and they were attached to them, and so that's basically how they live their lives. Willem Dafoe plays the man who manages the hotel. He is definitely one of my favorite actors, alongside, Stellan Skarsgård, Paul Dano, and a couple other actors like that, Philip Seymour Hoffman. But he's definitely up there, probably in my top five. He plays a lot of villains. He's played a lot of pretty provocative roles, which I really like. I love his commitment to his craft, and I think that he's a brilliant performer. In this film, he plays a much more, I don't want to say soft spoken, but a much more sensitive, empathetic man than a lot of the other characters that I've seen him play. In Antichrist, he played a character that meant well, but didn't really do well. But in this film, I felt like the character that Willem Dafoe played was much more grounded. He was kind of the voice of reason throughout the film. He definitely kept a lot of the characters grounded. You could tell that he cared a lot about his tenants and the people that lived there and rented rooms. I worked at the hotel. I've seen weird stuff before, and I thought that this film did a really good job at showing that. I think the lady that played the mom, um, I don't know if whoever wrote the film just didn't write the character very well, but the mom was literally just the most immature bitch I've ever seen in my life. Um, like, she was rebellious to the point where it was just obnoxious. But at the same time, I've seen what drugs can do to people. I've seen what drugs do to people. I've seen women with personality disorders, like borderline personality disorder, which is fundamentally a response to childhood trauma. So, and because of the mom's actions, the daughter, who's basically the main character, she ends up having to live this life that no 6-year-old child should ever have to live, you know? And it's sad, but it happens. It's one of those films where it's not a documentary, but this stuff like really does happen, and there are more kids than most of us realize living in these situations, and it's pretty messed up, man. But that's how it is in some places, and it was something that I didn't understand until I had to spend some time on the streets. I'm grateful that I had parents that gave a shit and were responsible enough to be able to raise me. And I couldn't imagine what it would be like otherwise. And I think that, especially for someone like me, who was raised middle class in a good home and was always provided for, it's a really good look and a really good insight into a life of someone that we might not ever even think about, you know, but it happens. And I thought that the mom's character was, you know, I think she was well written and she did a pretty good job acting. I guess she had never acted before. Just like in mid 90s, a lot of these kids in this film had never acted before, and you can kind of tell, but I feel like it made it more authentic, you know. A lot of it, you know, was improvised, and yeah, you know, kind of like kids, you know, kind of like mid 90s, where a lot of them hadn't acted before, you know, and they, you know, the budget was around $2 million. So obviously, this wasn't a film that Willem Dafoe did for a paycheck. He definitely has a passion for acting. He's been in everything from Spider-Man to Lars von Trier films to this film, to Wes Anderson films with low budgets. You know, he's done all kinds of stuff, and he's one of those actors that definitely pushes it, and I really admire that about him. This director, Sean Baker, did alright. I looked up his filmography, and he's only directed a couple other films. I looked at him, and none of them looked like anything that I would even be relatively interested in watching at all. I think he did alright directing this film. One of the things that I did admire was there were a couple times in the film where I felt like his direction and the cinematography was almost like voyeuristic. You know, like there were some times in the film where I felt like I was spying on these people and I was seeing something that I shouldn't be seeing. And I always really like and admire that style of filmmaking, especially in films like this with like pretty gritty realism, because I just think it's a very effective filmmaking technique for this style of film. And so I did enjoy that, but none of his other movies really looked that great. So I guess this is kind of going to be a spoiler, but at the end of the film, the girl ends up at the Magic Kingdom, you know, which is basically Disneyland in Florida. I was reading up on it, and, you know, for convenience sake and for, like, logistical reasons, you know, like I said, the budget was only $2 million. They recorded the last couple minutes on an iPhone, and you can totally tell instantly when it switches to the iPhone. But I like stuff like that. You know, it's not the most like technical kind of filmmaking, you know. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's like total DIY stuff, but I love that kind of stuff, you know. It doesn't make for the best looking film, but you know, I'm not always looking for, you know, the best looking film in the world. There were still some cool colors in this film. I really liked the bright pink of the motel. I thought that that was a good aesthetic choice. Besides that, I think that's really all I have to say about this film. I watched it on this streaming channel called Kanopy. It's spelled Kanopy. You can sign in with your library card, and you can watch like I think 10 movies a month for free. It's really really cool. You know, a library card is free. There's a lot of really good indie films, a lot of really good foreign films, and just a lot of really good films in general. So I would go ahead and check it out. The other night I watched a film called Bicycle Thieves, which is a classic film. I also watched another classic film, a Werner Herzog film, a couple months ago called Fitzcarraldo on there. And I also watched a film by Yorgos Lanthimos. He's a Greek director, called The Killing of a Sacred Deer. So it's called Kanopy. You know, if you have a Roku, whatever you use for your streaming services. I'm sure you can download it, sign in with your library card. I think it's a great streaming service, especially because it's free. So I would go ahead and definitely check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I got more content to come. Please make sure, if you like the video, at least a little bit, to like, and please subscribe. I'm really trying to get this channel to grow and just trying to put a bunch of content on here. You know, I still don't know how to add like graphics and text and all the like bells and whistles and stuff, but I'm getting there eventually. You know, I'm getting more and more technology and more tech savvy every time I do this. I plan on just building up a library of stuff so that when you guys want to start watching, you have a bunch of stuff to watch. So I already have over 50 videos on this channel, so please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment or anything if you want. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe about more content about film.